We see a lot of films that try and portray the realities of Iraq and Afghanistan, and they just don't seem to be able to capture the authenticity the way this film has. What do you think you're able to succeed in where other recent filmmakers have sometimes had a tough time capturing? Was it that camaraderie that you had with these guys? Was it their willingness to let you into their world? What do you think the keys were to really make this as powerful as it is?
I think it was just the accumulation of experience out there. Tim and I spent, we each did 5 trips, around a month each out there. We were together. On my second trip out there was with Tim. I tore my Achilles tendon. Tim took the next trip. He was on rock avalanche. He broke his leg in combat. This is not mentioned in the movie, but it bears mentioning. He broke his leg on top of the Avaskar and at night, and had to walk all night on a broken leg. They couldn't get him down off of there, and if he'd sort of been a crybaby about it, he really would have put a lot of men in danger. And he walked all night on a broken leg, got down. I took the next trip. That was when the Humvee got blown up. We just racked up a lot of time with them, and particularly the downtime. I mean, you can really get to know people pretty well when you're stuck on a hilltop without any communication or entertainment for weeks at a time, and that was what we did. And I think because of the economics of news reporting right now, I mean, all the networks, the newspapers are all in very, very tough times. They just can't. They can't, and the deadlines, they can't afford to spend a total of 10 months, with one platoon. That's not what the news is designed to do. It's designed to do something else, which is very important, but it's something else. I don't know why no one thought of doing this before, but to me it seemed like a very obvious and amazing idea to pursue. One platoon for a deployment, but no one had quite stumbled into that idea yet.
If it's all right, gents, I'm going to adjust fires a little bit and say, what was it like having this guy romping around with you when you first saw him, and how that relationship shifted, and how was it just working with these guys as a whole?
At first we just had a little standoff like anybody would with some reporters that just come out there, because we had a few that would come out there and try getting in our faces and talk to us, but then they just kept coming back, and they started bringing us tobacco, and letting us use their cell phones, sat phones, and stuff like that. And then they started becoming one of the boys. We used to mess around with Tim and Sebastian, wake them up for guard, just messing with them. They never pulled guard, but they eventually became one of the family with us, so it worked out good.
And sir, you obviously were in a very different capacity, given your role up there. What was it like having these guys running around with your troops, running around with yourself? Was it different than you would say what the average troop was getting while he was up there?
It was easy for me because I knew when I first met Sebastian that he already had some credibility with the company, because he had been over in Afghanistan with the boys during their first deployment over there. They'd been talking Sebastian up and how he was, physically fit. He understood what was going on. And then when he immediately knew what it is that he wanted to go to the front, and went down there and didn't put the boys in any kind of jeopardy or anything in their firefight that he captures behind the school in Aliabad. I kind of trusted the fact that Sebastian knew what it was that he was going to get himself into. And then when he comes back with Tim, replacing another individual that was already over there, I could tell that he was definitely investing in this, getting somebody who was definitely physically fit and capable of being able to do that, and that they understood that they couldn't go out there and not be physically and mentally as tough as the soldiers were in order to do what it was. So I didn't have any kind of hesitation with putting them out there at all.
Well, I must say, everybody here, I'm sure we're all glad that they did let him in, and that you guys did have tobacco and everything available for you. So at this point, let's go ahead and shift it over. I'd love to turn to some questions in the audience. I see this gentleman right here, sir.
We've just had an interesting event with General McChrystal. You took him inside the tent. That's the way I explain it. As a Vietnam guy, you don't trust the press. They're the bad guys. They're there to get a story, and they don't make money if they tell good things. There's got to be something bad about it. And I asked Mr. Younger, is this whole McChrystal thing with Rolling Stone, is that going to limit your access and access like you had to other guys? I know from a military standpoint, I think everyone's going to give the press the stiff arm from here on in.
I mean, the press has always had access to the generals. The embed program that started in 2003, which I and every other journalist I know who works in these situations thinks is a good idea. I mean, the more media access, the better. The more accountability there is, the more understanding by the population. That started in 2003, and it was designed to put journalists with frontline combat units. That's very different from the kind of access that journalists, I think, have always enjoyed to politicians, to generals, to diplomats. It's a different thing. So I really, really hope that the embed program, which is very well designed for doing a specific thing, that doesn't get tampered with, because it really, I mean, I know a lot of journalists from other countries who have embedded with their own militaries, and I can tell you, like, there is more access for press with the U.S. military, and you don't have to be American, just press in general from any country with the U.S. military than in any other military in the world that I have heard of. And it's a very, very good and noble thing, I think. And I think in the long run, it's very good for the military, it's good for the country, it's good for the world. So I mean, I know as a result some negative stories are going to come out, some positive ones do, but in the long run, I really feel in a democracy it is the only way to run the press, and it's the only way to run the military.
I really need to buy that issue. It sounds like it caused some significant changes and rifts here in our nation's capital. So, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Major Kearney, some of your fellow officers just got some good news last week regarding the Battle of Wanat. Your fellow company commander, Captain Meyer, Colonel Ostlund, and Colonel Preisler had the letters of reprimand that had been issued to them pulled for Wanat. I wondered if you could comment on how that feels. And I know some of the guys who were at Wanat, and they feel they should be considered victors of that battle. I wondered whether you guys, maybe Sergeant Pelkin, could comment on how you guys feel you either won or lost, in the time you guys spent there.
I don't know if it's about winning or losing. I mean, if Sebastian probably showed you everything that he filmed of me, and the same thing that Tim goes is, I mean, we win some, we lose some, in the Korengal at least. I know that with Chosen, those young men and the leaders, they set out to do something that they were asked to do. They did it to the best of their abilities, and those men fought just as hard and harder in many cases than any one of my soldiers on that day. I think that they can all hold their heads high, and they can walk around knowing that they gave it their all, and that Colonel Ostlund and Captain Matt Meyer did everything that they could to support them. Colonel Ostlund supported me, and I love that man to death. I am quite certain that we would not have been as fortunate in the Korengal without his supervision and his leadership. And I know that that Matt Meyer is an incredible officer, and I know that his men loved him. So I wasn't there. I can't comment really any more on that, but I mean, Pemble might. Pemble can't.
Anybody from this side?